Hi guys, how are you all? This is Deborah Walker, this is TNS Radio, and this is my last show of the year, so I thought I'd treat you all, as always, to someone absolutely lovely who I met just recently, and she's called Alix. So, she was a professional voice coach, and is a professional voice coach and actress, writer for TV, film, so yeah. I know I'm spoiling you all. As well as a one-woman show she's done. She's been the head of drama and singing in departments at the Dance Factory in Melbourne. And during her time there, she developed her own highly successful vocal confidence seminars for speech and singing. I know I should be taking lessons. I can already see you saying that in the chat box. So I recently met Alix at the first Chemtrails Awareness Conference in London that happened in December. There was about 150 of us there. And so I asked her to come on and talk about the project with me today that she set up with Olga, which is called Chemtrails Project UK. So, Alix, welcome to TNS Radio and welcome to Food for Thought.
Thank you, Debbie. It's lovely to be here.
Fantastic. So, just give me a background about how you ended up setting up a chemtrails project across the UK from what you were doing originally.
Well, I woke up to the chemtrails courtesy of realizing there was a third building on 9/11, and it took me down the rabbit hole to discover a lot more. And I actually started photographing myself here in London, chemtrails, on September the 11th, 2011.
Wow.
Ironically, I'd actually seen them back in 1994 because I was born in England, but I grew up in Australia, and I'd never seen these long trails in growing up in Melbourne in Australia until I reached LA. And they looked very military to me. They were all being flown in grids. This is 1994. But I had no suspicion of governments doing anything at the time, particularly beyond standard low-level corruption. So I asked my friend at the time, and I said, why are the military up in the sky? And I was told or pacified by my friend, who obviously didn't have any suspicions either. She said, oh no, it's just the Northern Hemisphere. The vapor trails show up more over here. And I passively accepted that at the time. So let's scroll through now to 2008. And I was still not really aware of these lines or what they were. And a friend from Melbourne who hadn't been to London for 30 years came to visit. And he noticed them immediately in London. And I gave him the explanation I was given in 1995. It's just the Northern Hemisphere. The vapor trails show up more, like the water goes down the plug a different way in the other hemisphere. And nothing of it. But of course, come 2011, and I had been doing a lot of investigating alternatively, and realized, oh dear, this is not normal. And started connecting my own dots, as I've just relayed, and as people have, you start reaching out for others who are explaining it, showing their own evidence, and people, of course, had already been talking about it in the UK for a long time, all around the world, which is quite an eye-opener. And but I think, compared to the other issues that many people are now becoming aware of, like magnetic frequency with Wi-Fi, chemtrails, which is a name that has been stigmatized by the people who want to debunk it. Stratospheric aerosol injection is the actual term by the geoengineers themselves. Nevertheless, chemtrails is a term that was used by Congressman Dennis Kucinich when he created the Space Preservation Act, and so it was an official term. But it's since taken on a terrible stigma, and denial is a great tool, as we know, with governments. If they just keep saying, no, it's not happening, despite concerned citizens trying to get information about it, it deems those citizens lunatics or nuts, or so, which is terrible because it's a cognitive dissonance that it causes. You're seeing it in plain sight, and people are saying, no, it's not happening. And that is abuse. So there's obviously thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world who've observed this and put together irrefutable evidence with patents, with visual documentation. The geoengineers actually have had this going as a plan for decades. And it takes many, many hours, probably thousands, to dots of the overwhelming evidence that is actually there, but not fed to the public through the mainstream media, of course. So denial is the biggest thing about this particular issue, and yet ironically it's being done in plain sight, and we now have generations of people growing up who know nothing else other than these constant trails in the sky, thinking it's normal. Certainly the younger generation do. But I connected with Olga Raffa last year because she is the first person who actually pulled her finger out, decided to instigate rainwater testing of the toxic elements that are coming out of these planes, as proven in the United States. She decided to get it going here. And so she was also swimming around the net, and people connect on the internet, and she liked the way I articulated the issue, and we got together, and instead of writing yet another polite letter to an MP that was going to be refuted with simple denial, because they're given a directive to do so, clearly, the answers are so consistent. These are just vapor trails. You're not seeing anything suspicious. We felt this was unsatisfactory, so we decided as the public who actually pay the wages of the MPs with taxes to issue them a directive. So citing about 20 points of evidence, which is really just the backbone of the evidence. There is, of course, a wealth more, but many acts are often directing people to websites which do have the evidence, but it is an overwhelming thing to come to terms with, and not a particularly nice one. People already struggling with health, with the economy. To discover you're being sprayed daily is not a nice thing to feel like attending and wading through websites. So really the intention of the directive was just to give people, yes, it's 11 pages, but that's shorter than an entire website with loads and loads of PDFs of patents and scientific evidence to wade through, which most people don't have the time nor the energy. So this was just to get people started. It is linked to scientific documents and irrefutable evidence of the activity, and showing the motives of where this is coming from. We've had a lot of, quite a few thousand downloads of the directive. Interestingly, of course, not many MPs have wanted to attend the directive. In responses from people who've sent it to them, they just ignore it thus far. I think because, as we say in the directive, if you were ignorant of this issue before reading this, afterwards you won't be. But if you choose to ignore this issue, then you deem yourself complicit. So please, do your job and let's. So we've got a double-pronged thing that we formed. Olga created the name on a page on Facebook, Chemtrails Project UK, and she got the name from already had set up a man who pulled issue connects to, and he guides us to different labs, ideally an independent sample, split it in two and send it to two different labs, basically to keep them honest. And it was quite stunning to discover the difference between the results, between two labs, between the government and the independent lab. And the government lab actually filtered the result before doing the testing, which explains a lot. So
in effect, they were altering the actual initial sample to, they were taking out elements before they were actually then sampling it.
Exactly. well, pretty, you think that's a legitimate way to test a sample that somebody is sending in. Obviously, that isn't. And we went and spoke to our independent lab and in Bristol, and he informed us there's only a handful of labs that are independent left in the UK. So,
and you mean independent in regards to who they're funded by?
Yes. And so when we start really having the subject, discussing the fact that all science is funded, and you have to look at where's the money coming from. And without funding, scientists can't do their job, like anybody. So they're often compartmentalized, not consciously complicit with anything nefarious, but that's just the reality. So even though and environmental organizations take their science, their evidence from scientific institutions.
So look, let me just get back to the denial side and the ignorance side of the subject matter of geoengineering, because, even recently on my own Facebook page, I put out the Terry Lawton video, because Terry actually videoed part of the Chemtrails conference onto my Facebook page, and somebody on there actually said there was no scientist that actually supports that these trails exist. Now, I laughed and basically showed them a number of pieces of evidence from the Royal Society themselves, so, I can refute that. But this is the thing, there's lots of denial about this going on, and there's lots of language, and you talked about the language where it's almost like they've changed the language, and they've made chemtrail language to be almost conspiracy, yet geoengineering actually happens. Do you want to just talk around all this denial a bit more for me, because that fascinates me?
I think people have to become aware that the media are obviously in collusion.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
And media, they're in collusion to get a particular message through to the public, and people work very intricately on the sort of language they use. And we can even talk about the fact that it used to be global warming, now it's climate change. It's all gradually steered in the public consciousness and through the mainstream media. If you've unplugged from that, you can see it all happening. Geoengineering is now being talked about in the mainstream media. It's escalated in the last year. That's no surprise, because the activity has escalated in the skies.
So have you actually noticed it escalating in the skies? Have you been documenting that with the other people?
All over the UK and around the world. I suppose one of the most obvious escalations to me is because I grew up in Melbourne. I was there for 30 odd years, and this activity was not noticeable. Otherwise it wouldn't have hit me like a brick in 94 when I left in LA. But I am in touch with a group in Melbourne, and I'm watching their documentation, and it's horrifying to see it escalating there. And they don't have the heavy domestic traffic we have over London.
Yeah, so it's actually more obvious there in many respects what's happening.
Skies are looking like London's.
Yes.
And the rest of the UK. The escalation from my personal perspective, because I've taken photographs of it, as many people do, you find it compelled to prove it to people. But to get back to the terminology, because it's extremely important, the fact that there is so much activity within the science community and governments having these meetings behind closed doors, these conferences that they eventually reveal what was discussed, like the Solar Radiation Management Governance Initiative in 2011.
Which is actually being developed by the Royal Society alongside the government, isn't it?
That's right. And so geoengineering is absolutely a reality. Why would you need to have people from all over the world be discussing this activity if it was simply a model in a scientist's lab on his computer? They will, struggle to acknowledge, yes, some field tests have occurred. Well, we beg to differ that it's already going on globally. And the description of what geoengineering stratospheric aerosol injection is exactly describes what we're seeing in the sky. The main element that comes up, the predominant element, is aluminium.
Yes.
Often the debunkers want to say, well, aluminium is a natural element, it's in the earth, but it's a version of aluminium that they began to add to jet fuel in the 50s, trimethyl aluminium. And it creates this almost pyroclastic effect that you see coming out of a volcano where it explodes, or rockets. And this is what have been observing with chemtrails, these trails that come out of the back of the planes. They're not little contrails that disappear like water vapor is supposed to. They spread, they expand, and they join other trails, and they can form whiteout in under an hour.
Well, this is what the everybody's videoing it, isn't it? And Max Bliss on the conference, he actually had a significant body of work of videos, and that was fascinating in regards to the different types of planes he'd filmed. Whereas normally you just see the trails on the videos, he'd actually been filming the actual planes and where it was coming out on the planes, wasn't he?
Absolutely, and he's got some brilliant documentation. He certainly connected all the dots. He does know all the issues involved.
Yeah, and he also showed that there were obviously military planes involved. There were normal charter aircraft involved. There were also completely blacked out planes, so planes where all the windows have been blacked out and everything. That they were involved. So and he reckons that there's definitely a private fleet, doesn't he?
Well, there is, and I think TNT is one, Federal Express is one. All they have to do is recalibrate these fleets that are already doing global circuits, which is indeed what most of us feel has been done.
And the thing is, the flight paths, he also showed the flight paths. Now, you can get hold of the flight paths now, particularly for chartered aircraft. And he showed the zigzagging across, didn't he, of I think it was Kent on that particular day, that we saw it. And so it's not as if it's hidden, this information.
It's not, but you do have to dig for it. And, but it is there. And geoengineering flight paths of field tests by the military that are going on in different places, and that zigzagging matches what Max documented with the flight paths that he could track on the software, but also could see visually going on above him. So geoengineering being just a proposal to attend apparent global warming, which is the disinfo that's been put out, it's not a proposal. It's a reality. It's already going on. It's part of what a lot of people are becoming familiar with, the Hegelian dialect, problem, reaction, solution. They've created the problem. And even NASA will admit that aviation emissions, just aviation emissions, are causing global dimming. And yet even that topic is not attended in any of these global warming, climate change discussions that are going on at the UN level.
And what's fascinating about that is that every single country, they give tax breaks to airlines.
Well, this is what we put in the directive. It was a marvellous thing to discover and add to the evidence, but it wasn't talked about very much, but it is now. People are mentioning it much more, and it is another angle to bring up, which is aviation emissions are not regulated. Mm. They don't have to pay CO2 emissions, so that even if you don't think there's anything nefarious in the toxic fallout, you certainly have to concede that yes, aviation emissions are causing cloud cover that's blocking the sun, which has caused a 20% drop in sunlight and vitamin D levels to plummet worldwide. That includes a sunny country like Australia, where they're all on vitamin D supplements. So
what is different about a contrail to a chemtrail? Just explain that for part of my audience who may not know that.
Yes, this argument I will cover, but in fact I personally believe has become no, because but in the original explanation, at a certain altitude, this is where supposedly contrails form. They have to be at a certain height, about 30,000 feet. And below that, they won't form if the humidity is a certain level. Well, people are proving that this is not true. So sometimes you will see two apparently military jets. Why do I say that? Because they're flying parallel. And one will be leaving a small contrail. In other words, it will disappear, And the other one will leave this huge plume. And they're both flying at exactly the same altitude. So, and often, and people have actually captured these jets switching the trails on and off at the same altitude.
Well, Max had videoed that, hadn't he? So he'd videoed where they were turning, they switch it off so that you can't see the loop.
Yes. There's a brilliant German guy who also captured the most irrefutable evidence. I've never seen two jets fly so close together. They'd have to be military. If they were commercial, they'd lose their licenses. It's extraordinary. And you just see them turning the trail on and off, the second jet. But they're almost wingtip to wingtip. In this German chap's clip. It's one of the best pieces of evidence I've seen, and it's so obvious. But you can see it with your own eyes. Well, over the UK, I've seen it myself countless times, jets just switching the trail on and switching it off. And in my time in London, I've certainly noticed that the domestic commercial traffic coming in, of course we get a lot of it over London, it's got lower and lower and lower. Activity higher up by what appeared to most of us to be military, because these are unmarked white planes, escalates. Just when I started photographing this, there was trailing at night. Chemtrails over the moon last year. But I started noticing, as many people have, that the trailing begins the moment the sun comes up, and they are targeting the sun.
Yeah.
And this goes on throughout the day, and then heavily targeting again at sunset. So, even when we get apparently clear days, and this is where people are getting, in my opinion, a little confused between the contrail and the chemtrail, what we think is a clear blue day is not actually a clear sky, because these military jets are still flying above, not apparently leaving great obvious plumes, but you will sense and see a definite haze. There's a slight milkiness to your vision of the sky. It's not pure blue. So we get very few clear days, as you know.
And I don't know about you, but I find, particularly when they were spraying over where I live, and they were doing it earlier this year 3 times a week, and I log it because I have screening equipment, so I actually screen my own health. And I was finding that I could taste it in the air. So there's a taste to the air when they've been heavily spraying. Which is, I never tasted that before this year, but they've been spraying over where I live, and I live in Surrey, about 3 times a week at one stage, and that was earlier this year.
Well, the thing is that, the particulate matter that comes out of planes, does have a fallout, and isn't just water vapor. Goodness me, there's fuel coming out the back. It's exhausting. Yeah. I mean, people have been complaining for decades about the particulate matter, PM, as it's chemically known, particulate matter that comes out of cars at road level, cars and trucks and lorries. And this is what people's focus is on in big cities, to try and clean up the air quality, which of course is one of the biggest killers. In fact, it is the biggest killer in the UK, air quality. There's over 70,000 deaths due to bad air quality around the UK. These are figures I gleaned when I went to a clean air meeting in Wandsworth earlier this year. And nitrogen dioxide is the chemical substance that keeps coming up as the one they focus on. And yet it was presented that 50% of the toxic substances are particulate matter. And my challenge was, why aren't you analysing what is in that particulate matter? And why are you not looking at the clearly heavy domestic traffic, if nothing else, that covers the cities?
I cannot imagine that they're not actually analysing what's in our air in that detail. They'll know exactly what they're doing to us. Joe, just out of the rainwater samples, what are you actually finding yourselves?
Heavy metals.
Which ones?
Aluminium, strontium, zinc, lead, manganese, which is known to actually lower sperm count.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I've had strontium turn up in my own screenings, and when that started turning up in high levels, that's when I started to really be switched onto it far more, because there's no reason why I should personally have high levels of strontium in my system.
And the thing is that there is a collusion going on of stymieing the public's attempts to ascertain this with testing, because just about everybody that's tried to go to their NHS GP to get a heavy metals blood test is denied.
Yeah. And I know that because I have clients who turn up here to actually be screened by myself instead. Which
many people can't afford to go privately to get this done, unfortunately. Of course it has to be charged for. That's how you make a living. But, I said to my own GP, I said, I actually had my camera with me with a heavily gridded number of photographs. Why do you want it? I said, well, I'll show you. I said, what concerns me is that you're a health professional, and what's in the air doesn't concern you.
Yeah.
Tacit. I'm sure I've got a black mark against my name. But it's pretty irrefutable, and the responsible for the testing, the air quality, run away from me fast enough after the meeting when I pinned her down, and I said, I really think it would be worth the other elements are. Why isn't that being done? And she said there isn't enough funding. So, public excuse given, and yet in my own searches with the air quality testing sites around the UK, they are testing for heavy metals. But they don't make this information easily available to the public. I mean,
not for us, is it? At the end of the day, not for our eyes.
Who's busily doing FOIA requests, freedom of information requests to water companies, and what it's proving, which we knew in advance, is that consistent testing. Some will give up the information, some will make it very, very difficult. And this is a public service, the water. It's only onto the water, to get onto the soil, which of course is the next major concern. One of the major concerns about this, because the aluminium especially is changing the pH level of the soil. And why is this important? Well, because things can't grow, and it's changed the pH level of the soil in London, according to my rainwater test, and many people around the country are noticing the difference in the foliage. They're seeing mold grow. What it also affects is the way the roots grow, and so they don't get the depth, can't reproduce themselves. So the soil, if we can't grow anything because we've got too much aluminium being sprayed on top, well, who came in with a new aluminium resistant seed? Monsanto, GMO, king of the world. And of course they sell Terminator seeds so that farmers become pretty much enslaved to this company. They have to buy them again every year. They can't be in charge of producing their own crops and being responsible for that.
So what you're talking about here is a wider strategy, aren't you, Alex? Basically, it's a wider picture. It's not just the one thing, behind the modifying of the weather. There seems to be other elements involved with it. Do you actually think this is about weather and climate change, or whether this is a far higher agenda that's being played out here?
Well, the US military have a document saying weather 55. And all of this technology is discussed in this document from 1995, using the weather as a force multiplier. And I think it would be naive if people felt the military really were under any particular one government's rule. I think an entity unto themselves. There is another government that isn't loyal to any particular nation, and this is a global operation. Owning the weather, if you own the weather, well, you own the planet. Droughts, floods, you name it.
Starvation.
Starvation, and it's pretty terrifying to, once you wake up to this, to realize a lot of the major disasters weather-wise around the planet may well have been done deliberately from a geopolitical situation. And I think people are waking up exponentially around the planet to the fact that the governments are just puppet governments that we've all got in place. There is something else going on because, of course, the bankers have been engineering an economic collapse. It's all tied in. So if you own the weather, you own the food. We're already become very aware that our water has been fluoridated, which so they've been getting at us very well. You know, the water, the food, the air. You can distill your water. That is one of the things we like to suggest as a solution to help attend the health problems that this is causing, because the heavy metal combination of aluminium and fluoride is can be directly linked to causing Alzheimer's, ADHD. A lot of the mental faculties are sabotaged by the combination of these elements ingested into a human being. Of course, we've got heavy metals spotted now in the vaccine. That's people are becoming more aware of that. So sadly, one then becomes aware of something called Agenda 21, which is a depopulation agenda of the planet, feeling that perhaps we've got rid of a few billion of us. It will be nicer for those left behind to enjoy the planet. So we don't like to throw all of this information. People feeling fairly oppressed already. But chemtrails are a gift in a way, because they are actually going on in plain sight. You can see them. You can't see the GMOs. You can't see genetically modified aspects of the food that we're being directed to eat and being told it's safe, when of course it actually isn't. Electromagnetic frequency sensitivity, which is exponentially affecting people because of the Wi-Fi grid that all urban areas and country areas, everybody is being affected by these pulses. There are frequencies that we have in our bodies that are supposed to be a particularly natural level. I can't quote you the exact numbers, 7 to 8 or around 7. The human body has a natural healthy frequency, as does the planet. And all of this Wi-Fi gridding around the planet with phone towers, and of course big installations that people will be aware of or becoming aware of, like HARP, which are ionospheric heaters, and they can manipulate the ionosphere.
And the HARP interacts with the nanoparticles that they're actually spraying out, doesn't it?
That's right. The metallic elements actually we now have a highly conductive atmosphere.
And what is fascinating about that, and what most people won't realise, is that as we absorb that, HARP then has a direct effect on ourselves.
That's right. And it shouldn't be such a quantum leap, because the mainstream are pumping out all the benefits of nanotechnology for medicine. soon you'll be able to have a nano-sized little robot going inside your body and it'll fix you. We'll direct it, switch it on. And so in actual fact, they're being very brazen about this, except of course the mainstream are painting this as being very positive. And of course it can have positive uses. Sadly, the frequencies that they're using are not positive for people. Many children who are the most vulnerable because they're not fully developed are suffering terribly from the excessive Wi-Fi frequencies that are in schools now. And many parents are waking up to it and yanking their kids out if they can. Positioned to, but of course many people aren't. Really the solution is to plug the computers back in. Or, even better than that, these companies that are providing all the communications could actually change the frequency so that it doesn't damage. So, but until such time, there are electromagnetic frequency protection devices people can look into. I have some myself, and because we can't all just move to some lovely idyllic country area. And even that is a slight delusion to think that you're completely free of it, because these phone towers are put up all over the country and they're very strong. So, other things that are using orgone energy to try and negate the effects of the electromagnetic frequencies, many people having great success with them. Again, we don't bring this up straight away when we're talking about chemtrails, because for the person first awakening, just awakening to the fact things are being sprayed is enough. If we can get people to wake up to that, we know it's the key to waking up to all the other issues that we've been talking about today. Mm. But there is an urgency in the community, the activist community, who are aware of all these issues, of just wanting to warn people. So the information comes tumbling out of all of these major things. And I don't know about you, but, if I've mentioned too many things to a colleague, a new acquaintance, and brought this up, I just see them glaze over. It's too much, in other words, what that often does, if you overload the information too much, it's just my opinion, with an individual who's not aware of any of these things, that you actually push them back to taking a pill, having a beer and plonking themselves in front of a EMF plasma screen, watch the football and being mindless and running away from it, which, that feeds the denial, unwittingly, unintentionally.
It's quite a big leap though for most people, isn't it? And I'm pretty lucky. I have a radio show, so I have a lot of people who want to listen about this information. But what you're asking for the majority of the population, you probably watch the mainstream media and read the mainstream media in effect to make a massive leap between understanding that people who we think are defending us, are creating our security, are looking after us, are actually not actually doing that. And that's the leap that you're asking them to make, that understanding.
What you're also asking a lot of them to do is to come out of their compartmentalization of their profession. Mm. May well be colluding in this. And that is horrifying for people of good intent who never knew that maybe, injecting children with vaccines is not actually ideal for their health.
Fundamentally though, if you are paying taxes in any country, you are colluding, because you are paying towards this happening towards yourselves, whether it's pharmaceuticals, the vaccinations, whether it's the spraying, and the banking system. Not even by working within it, but actually by paying taxes, we actually help collude, don't we?
We do, but of course there's still a huge swathe of the middle classes who aren't aware of that. They're aware that they've got a sense that there is something's not right. There's a sense of unease, but because this is the system that we've all grown up in, and as yet, even though people are working on changes all over the place in the alternative community, if they're not in touch with that information, they're not aware that there is an alternative, which is a lot of them will just give up and go, well, what choice do I have? What can I do? I can't stop a plane in the sky. I can't stop what they put in the food in the supermarkets. I can't stop. This is the attitude.
Yeah.
They haven't been informed. And of course it is a challenge, but thank goodness for the alternative media, the internet, people like yourself running alternative interviewing shows to help pull people into hearing some truth and to let them know there are solutions, there are ways around this. There are brilliant people working out the legal system and how that's been usurped, but how to turn it on its head. Part of the Freeman movement and lawful rebellion, and Roger Hayes is doing a great job with trying to reinstate common law. It's been usurped in every country. Australia, America, there are, two governments in operation. But it is a bit of time you have to understand what's been done, then how to turn it around. And the more we can help the people who are very articulate about this issue to help educate the public how they can turn it around and turn around the issue of their council tax, their car tax, their this tax, and understand that statutes are not things we necessarily have to oblige. But this is another subject area, but it is connected because, yes, peaceful withdrawal is what everybody is advocating, but towards peaceful alternatives as well. Free energy has obviously been around, but stymied. But that would alleviate a lot of people's finance. They didn't have to pay their fuel bills. Their water is actually something everybody or all of us are entitled to. Nobody should own the water. What the companies have come in cleverly and done is own the delivery of it. The same with the power. But there are some legal ways around this, and so I think ideally for the next conference we have in London, what we'd like to ideally incorporate as well as the chemtrails issue and cover all the other issues is obviously the solutions within the system looking into. And there are speakers, wonderful ones around the country that hoping to solicit and see if they're available, come and add their valuable information to. Look, I was asleep to a lot of this. I wouldn't have known. It's taken hundreds and probably thousands of hours of re-educating myself. I considered myself pretty smart, always watched the news, presumed I was very well informed. And why I feel the middle class are the big target area are because these are the sort of people I've grown up with. I've mixed with every class. I don't say any class is better than any other, but we are aware there is a class situation. And the poor old middle classes are the ones who are in all the professions that keep the thing turning. And in my humble opinion, I think the working class are well aware of a lot more of what's going on than the middle class, who are still attached to the mainstream media. And, so they're used to a certain broadsheet language, and just to come up to somebody with a flyer and saying you're being poisoned from the sky, I kind of know my kin people, and they'll just find that sensational and think. And really, it's targeting also, a particular mindset that won't respond to sensational language. Things like the Illuminati, New World Order, Agenda 21, a lot of this stuff, although it's very real, is too much to start off with. So we just start with the evidence, the scientific documentation, rainwater tests.
So tell me what your key aim for 2013 is going to be with your project.
Well, we may even change the name, because we have there are a couple of wonderful, sites work with and mirror their work, because it is very scientifically based. It's geoengineeringwatch.org. Dane Wigington, who's a solar expert and climate researcher, who was featured heavily in the movie Why in the World Are They Spraying? Along with Scott Stevens, who's probably the meteorologist who's pulled out of the system because he could see what was going on. So He's probably the only honest meteorologist on the planet we've got who's been willing to diagnose and reveal what's happening. But these are very good authoritative voices. Scott had 20 years of mainstream weather broadcasting. So he's worth listening to. And these people, the term geoengineering, now that the geoengineers themselves are using the mainstream media to educate the public about it, that term is becoming more frequent. And in actual fact, it does encompass the different levels of geoengineering that they're actually using, because this isn't just coming from the air. The ships are doing it by sea, and they also have land-based facilities to do it. So it's land, air and sea. Even got graphics to demonstrate from their own documents.
Yeah, lots of people don't realise that actually there's a lot of stuff being played around with the sea to try and influence the actual heating elements of the well, globally. And there are quite a few. I can't remember who I read just recently. Scientists who are actually coming out saying that the damage that this is doing to the actual sea itself and the biodiversity of it.
It's utterly horrendous and, well, obviously irresponsible, but there is an agenda behind it, which is often what people who are new to the issue go, well, why would they do it? Why would they do it to themselves?
Yeah.
Very good question. And when you take on board that the military are actually 50 years in advance with their technology, what a slow drip to the public. I mean, let's face it, air travel hasn't changed much, has it, in 40 years? It's for the public. But what the military are doing is extremely advanced. And it hasn't filtered down for the average user. The same thing with health. And there are ways of treating your health that I personally believe are available to elite members of our human population that's not actually available to the rest of us. Although some very savvy alternative health professionals are starting to practice things like magnetic pulse therapy, electromagnetic therapy. This is a war of frequencies in many ways. It is your frequency level that also determines your health. pH balance has been documented as absolutely how you can attend cancer. If you change the acid-alkaline balance from acid to alkaline, you can eradicate cancer. This has been proven. It's just, of course, it won't go through to the mainstream because these people are all connected. There's 5 media companies that tell us in syndication what they want us to know.
I'm finding it really interesting at the moment because I obviously play with my own health and I tend to experiment on my own health quite a lot. And in regards to the removal of heavy metals, the frequency side of the work that I do, which is all resonance work and energy work, that is having a significant impact. And I never originally I'm trained as a nutritionist and a naturopath, and I'm slowly but surely moving towards more resonance work, which all of us can do. This is the thing, guys. In the audience there, you can all do it. It doesn't cost anything to play around with your state and with actually your frequencies and energy levels and meridian work and things like that, because that can have a big impact.
Absolutely. And music is it's a universal healing if it's done at the right sort of acoustic frequencies, and chakras. People who practice yoga and meditation are able to pull themselves up out of these disease level frequencies we're being bombarded with all the time. So it's as much as it's who don't practice any of this, there is now actual scientific basis to it that's very, very legitimate. About the stuff they've been doing for thousands of years to keep themselves healthy. Good vibrations, as the Bee Gees said. Oh, not the Bee Gees, sorry, the Beach Boys. vibration is a very, very healing aspect to all of us, and every Indigenous culture around the world prioritized song and dance. And yet you look at every urban Western nation, and where do you go? Not easy. Certainly not in the UK. You'd have to go somewhere where you can get drunk, maybe sing in a karaoke bar. There's not a lot of outlets for this to happen, or you have to go to a class to do it. But if you felt like singing and dancing, that we've had sort of thrown at us over in westernized cultures that had a sad effect, and the compartmentalization of reduced 2.4 boxed families. The only time they come out really is maybe the odd wedding. They have kids, There's a lot of solo people who aren't part of community who find it very difficult to get themselves involved in community if there is no children involved. And this never used to happen in Indigenous cultures. So it's very isolating. But as you say, there are things that people can do for their health, and that is the motivation behind Chemtrails Project UK is, in my personal opinion, first and foremost, is to come up concurrently with the facts, the evidence, but also health solutions that people can certainly please at least consider and look at the evidence yourselves instead of obviously want to steer people away from the pharmaceutical treadmill, which is time.
Alix, I think we should have a break because you've been talking for nearly an hour, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm wondering whether you'll come back after the break and just carry on and give us more of a summary basically about the health solutions that you started talking about, as well as some of the key things that we can be doing to get involved with your project.
Yes, we'd be happy to.
Okay, right then. So we're going to go into Crazy Head next, guys. This has been Debbie Walker with Alix Longman from the Chemtrails Project UK. Fascinating so far, and stay with us for the second half. Hi, this is Deborah Walker, this is TNS Radio, and today I've got Alix Longman with me from the Chemtrails Project UK. We've been chatting about chemtrails on the project and actually loads and loads of things, the wider strategy that seems to be going on. Hello to everybody in the chat box. I've got Simply Steve with me, who's talking about the fact that there's first clear skies over North Cork that is seen in years. Interesting. And have you got, it looks like lots of people have got lots of, I was going to say wind. It's a really bad way of putting it, isn't it? Really bad weather and it's rather windy at the moment. And hello to Sam T. Who else have I got with me? Rich is there. Rich is actually, I think you put up, what in the world are they spraying? So hopefully Alix might give me some links to some of the things she's talked about, and I will post them. If not, then go to Chemtrails Project UK, and that has lots and lots of bits and pieces on it. And Max Bliss is also the person who I mentioned earlier. He's also got his own YouTube channel, really absolutely brilliant. And Chemtrails UK have also got their own channel on YouTube. So there's stacks and stacks of stuff out there. There's almost too much stuff. Spend your life reading it all. So welcome back, Alix. You started talking about health solutions before we finished, just for the first half. And lots of people on the chat box would like to know, what can we do about this, in all honesty, in regards to our own health? How do we protect ourselves, remove the heavy metals, all these sorts of things? Do you know?
Yeah, there's steps you can take just in your normal routine. I think one of the first things people might like to consider, I've certainly done it, is actually get a water distiller to absolutely clean out the crap that's put in out. I take the cover off my distiller and it's, oh gosh, I can almost gag with the fumes of the chemicals that are in just tap water. And I've done this experiment with bottled water as well, and the same thing happens. So that's a little bit of a shock for people who are addicted to their lovely bottled water, thinking that's the way to go. But I would highly suggest you get yourselves a distiller. It's a great investment, and some kind of metal or glass container, because plastics leach chemicals as well. Bisphenol A is common in all plastics. So you can gradually change your kitchen around in a way to the utensils that you use, because a lot of this stuff is slow, insidious, accumulates over time. And so getting rid of heavy metals with one visit to a practitioner who may be able to give you a remedy or a treatment of how to do so, that may well help as a one-off. But the constant bombardment of it means you really need to build in some kind of ongoing regime. One, to stop or reduce the amount of stuff that's coming into your body, and the other way, of course, is try and eat organic. And some people feel that's not, what's the point if it's being sprayed by the same chemicals? But of course the integrity of organic food is vastly different to the manufactured food we're now getting in supermarkets with genetically modified products everywhere. And many people suffering with ailments that even standard GPs are diagnosing and will advise clients to get off GMO foods, and they get relief from it. So you can wash the organic food very simply. Use some distilled water with some vinegar and just scrub it. That's all I do. So that's another easy regime. When you eat organic, you don't have to actually eat as much because there's far more nutrition involved in a lot of the processed food we eat. We have these voracious appetites because it's not actually satisfying us. So that's another area to look into. The air, of course, we can't control how we breathe the air. That's out of our control. So we do want people to become more aware of what's going on with that, and then start taking these first steps with food and water. Look into heavy metals and other regimes that are out there to try and do regular cleansing. Diatomaceous earth is one other aspect. The other thing to be aware of is that the frequencies, the conductivity of the atmosphere because of the heavy metals is working in coordination with the Wi-Fi grid that we have. And how do you protect yourself with that electromagnetic sensitivity, which displays in symptoms of fatigue and depression and many other emotional aspects that sometimes people think isn't a health issue. They start questioning themselves without realizing they could be being depressed because there's a big old pulse going on with the grid. So electromagnetic sensitivity, electromagnetic frequency sensitivity protection devices are available. There are many different companies now selling different devices. You can wear them as a pendant. Some have elastic wristbands. Sometimes you can plug a geomagnetic cleanse into the wall in your house and it will do a huge area. I've got quite a few of these devices. These are things very worth looking into and have been scientifically proven to put sort of like a web of protection around you, which helps a lot. I don't know if anybody else has felt this, but I'm sure many people do. And you walk into big shopping malls and start feeling very sort of lethargic, and I feel very sorry for people working under fluorescent lights and in big department stores and offices because, yes, the energy level is palpable. So it's worth looking into those as well to see if that will help increase your energy levels. Of course, personally, I would steer away from pharmaceuticals, but I appreciate many people are, on prescriptions and have been for years of their lives, and sometimes combinations of it. But the evidence is coming out of the collusion with vaccines and a lot of pharmaceuticals and the damage that they cause. The evidence is there if you choose to pull away from the mainstream to back that up. You can considering some natural alternatives to the 10 symptoms that you're suffering. Because allopathic medicine actually only treats symptoms, it's not holistic. So it's not necessarily getting to the cause. So this takes research, but we hope as we get a better website, we've got a donated by a supporter to the project. We hope to get that in a better state in before time, as soon as we can, to cross-reference and have more of this information there for people to refer to. So we have a website, chemtrailsproject.com, where you can download and read online the directive. You can see clips, you can see photos, you can order rainwater testing kits. We're also on Facebook, which is actually where we started. So it's just Chemtrails Project UK. It's a page, not a group. Just recently formed a community group for London, courtesy of the conference, which was magnificently pulled together by Mona Norman.
The wonderful Mona.
And so just thought we'd form a little group for Londoners who attended, although it was, like yourself, many people from all over the UK came, and Ireland, Terry.
And Max came from France, didn't he? So people were coming from quite a distance to it.
Absolutely. Such is the need for people to connect, because the emotional aspect, of course, with this is it can be very isolating. I spoke about this briefly at the conference at the end, which is to awaken to this can be, well, it's pulling some families apart, because one member of the family will wake up to the whole issue and the rest of the family are in denial, and that could be terribly isolating. So to find other people who are aware of this, just to connect with, just validate that you're not mad, you're not a nut. So we formed a little group called London Skywatch on Facebook, so please come and join us there. Hoping to have just a meetup of like-minded, aware people for support in January. That's not a conference, that's just a meetup, connect with people that you can talk about all of this without feeling ridiculed. So
how do people actually get involved with you, though? Do you want actually people to join you on the Facebook? Do you want people to do anything wider for your project? Do you need people to go and do the rainwater testing? If you had a call to action now, what would you be asking people?
In discussion with my co-admin Olga at Chemtrails Project UK, what we'd ideally like and what we're aiming for is to have an Atmospheric Preservation Act, which has been adapted as best we could for the UK. It was originally written by a wonderful American doctor in 2008. We've added that to the end of the directive, and we feel that's an act MPs ultimately need to instigate, which bans all of this from activity from our skies, because this has happened before. Governments have sprayed their populations with experiments, biological experiments. The proof is there. So it is a little bit of a delusion to think your government couldn't do this to you. They've done it before. They've done it in America, Australia, here, in other countries. They're doing it again. And so Silent Spring was we reference in the directive, which just is a reminder that the DDT, which was created by Monsanto, and so this is going on. The only way this is going to be around via the political system, for more people within the general public to snap out of the denial and speak up about it. So the more people can set up community groups and share the evidence, like the directive, the films, What in the World, Why in the World Are They Spraying? We're interested to get a documentary that's UK-centric about the same issue with a documentary filmmaker. Directive turned into video format for people who prefer to have some pictures along the way whilst the backbone of the evidence. We would like to set up with the groups all around the UK coordinated times to do testing. So we come up with our own independent evidence of what the fallout contains and combine it with Flight Checker, which of course will not come up on those. So that will then also prove that, yes, we've got an awful lot of activity spraying that is military, and that needs to be attended. And hopefully, my personal passion is we can knock down the Official Secrets Act. This is something every government hides behind under the guise or the term, this is for national security. Well, we are the nation, and I'm a little tired of having secrets kept from me. I don't want any secrets now. Why is there a need for secrets? Tell us the truth and we'll handle it. We're big people now. We're adults, you know. So please stop treating us like children and hiding behind this nonsense. That, of course, is a legal challenge that we're going to have to do. We have a wonderful woman, Pippa King, as I said, working on freedom of information requests. She spent 7 years doing biometrics, researching how to ban biometrics testing of children, fingerprinting, which is currently going on, by the way. But she's managed to get an act that's going to go through in 2013 to stop it. So she's an amazing woman, developed an incredible amount of experience by educating herself about how the system works. And so we're hoping we can get a couple of independent MPs who are not saddled with obligations to their party line and their whips to present direct questions to Parliament that will at least highlight the issue of aviation emissions and why they're not regulated, but we're all expected next year to suddenly pay CO2 tax. And poor old Australia is already having to do, which it's all based on a lie of global warming. That doesn't mean climate change isn't happening. Climate change, the big elephant in the room that's contributing to it is geoengineering. That is a current reality. And so this is what we want the public to wake up to and speak up about, because the UK as a culture, well, predominantly England, I know this as a voice coach, as a culture the English are conditioned not to speak up more than any other culture in the world. It's always deemed inappropriate to have to bring up anything that's perceived as negative. So but, you know, it's a survival tool, the voice. That's what we're all born with. And there is nothing positive or negative about all primal emotions: joy, anger, fear, and love, hunger for love. And every animal expresses all four. They don't just express positivity and joy, which is an ideal, and it's something to be commended. If you can express that in times of adversity. But if an animal's scared, it will express fear so that hopefully it can be protected by an adult if it's a child. So if it's angry about something, somebody's attacking it, this is just natural instinct. To suppress this in people under the guise that we all must be positive is actually why a lot of things don't actually happen, in my personal opinion. So I'm not encouraging anger, fear, and a hunger for love. I'm just encouraging people to be able to express the gamut of emotion that we're all born with to help us survive. So if people are angry about finding out about this information, that's okay. Say so. Good. There are, bad things do happen to good people. I do believe in the law of attraction, but I do believe one of the things missing from it is the ability to express when bad things are happening. If a child is being abused, you're not going to hand them a copy of The Secret. You're going to give them a hug and you're going to hopefully protect them from the person abusing them physically. And you might have to get a bit angry on their behalf. 10,000 people who died in a tsunami in Japan were not all thinking negatively. So it's just, you revert back to a little bit of common sense. We have 4 seasons. They're not all pleasant, as we know: summer, winter, autumn, spring. But if we just had summer all the time, it would be a bit flatlined. And frankly, having grown up in a country where summer can be actually unbearable when it's too hot. 45 degrees is not fun for 10 days. So this is where we're going. It's maybe the bigger reason why I've ended up involved with this is the way I can hopefully help people express how they feel in a culture that generally is suppressed about expressing how it feels, except when it has a drink.
Alex, it's been really interesting talking to you, particularly about the suppression of our expression and our ability as in the UK to express ourselves. I do think that you're probably talking to an audience who are more expressive about this than any other arena that I've come across. And it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I know we're running out of time because you need to go soon. So just give us one last, how do we get hold of you? How do we get hold of Chemtrails Project UK if we want to get involved with it?
Yes, of course. The other thing is that obviously if you have any, we're only asking skills and time. If you have any skills and time you can contribute, as indeed people currently involved, that's what they're contributing, not soliciting your money. But if you have IT skills, admin skills, PR skills, if you have access to a venue, you could help us utilize to bring together more future conferences. If you have any scientific connections who may be willing to come out of their compartment and consider the evidence and help support, because we're a bit challenged with scientists willing to speak on this who may lose their funding. So if you have anybody legal in your connections, all of the kind of middle class, middle class mover and shaker professions, that the more we can actually get these people on board, in the media as well, journalism, any of these areas that you can possibly help contribute to help get the message out and authenticate the evidence. So there's a call out for people with these skills to come and join us and expand the base of disseminating the truth about the issue and posing the solutions as well. So if you get in touch with us at Chemtrails Project UK, you can message us there, as well as do your own posts. Website, email facility, I don't think is functional, so we are hopefully going to get somebody IT, really professional IT experience to hopefully get that going. Of course, it'll take a little bit of time. If you want to get in touch with me, you can find me personally on Facebook. Alix Longman's just my real name. My email address is my website, which is Vocal Confidence, but my personal email is Alix, spelt ALIX, @vocalconfidence.com, and I'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic. Right, I'm just putting that into the chat box so that if anyone wants to get in contact with you, Alex, they can do. It's been absolutely brilliant talking to you. You've been absolutely fascinating. Superb guest for the end of my year. And what a way to round off the year. Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you so much, Debbie. All the best to you, and we'll talk to you again.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll catch up with you at the next Chemtrails conference at some stage. Thank you, Alex. Bye. Okay, so wasn't she wonderful? Wow. And massively knowledgeable woman, incredibly knowledgeable about chemtrails and the wider picture. Do get in contact with them. The Chemtrails projects, Chemtrails, Maximus, they're all got massive energy at the moment. There are lots and lots of things going on, and well worth, let me just say thank you to her over Skype, and thank you to you all for listening as always. And but there's massive energy behind what's going on at the moment, and it's well worth getting involved with because it's a wider picture. It's not just the one thing. We compartmentalize all these different areas. Actually, she talked about the biotech industry. She talked about the agri industry, and she talked about food. She talked about politics. It is compartmentalized in so many ways, and they do it on purpose to us. They do it with our learning. They do it with everything. We do it in what we work in. And, fundamentally, our taxes all go towards paying, towards that happening to us. God, nothing infuriates me more to think that I work, they take some tax from me, and then they spray that tax over me to kill me, or whatever they're choosing to do with it. I don't know, but I personally think they're trying to kill me off. No one would put heavy metals into their body without having that agenda, as far as I'm concerned. Because for me, you know, you look at what some of the things and the tests that are done across the world globally that are found, you know, you've got aluminium showing up in there. Where else have you got aluminium in? Lo and behold, vaccinations. But aluminium wasn't widely bioavailable to humans until like the 19th century. And then it started to be put into medicines and things like that. You know, the tissues most prone to collecting and storing aluminium are those tissues with slow cellular turnover. Your fatty tissues like to store heavy metals. Believe me, when cells die off, and you know, you've got 10 million cells that tend to die off and then are created every sort of second. You know, mostly they're generated over periods of time. You know, the skin generates quite quickly, as we know, if we get a wound and things like that. Your liver generates fairly swiftly, fortunately for everybody who's actually wrecked it over Christmas. But it doesn't happen so quickly at cellular level with your bone matter, with your heart tissue or your brain. These are absolutely fundamental to health. I mentioned heart and brain there. You want to think clearly, then believe me, they're not helping matters. You know, heavy metals do not help you to think clearly. You know, those last organs don't have rapid cellular turnover either. They're very prone to collecting and storing it. They really do. They like to hold on to it. You know, you're wondering why things like MS, chronic fatigue, epilepsy, fatigue syndromes, you know, you've got your Alzheimer's, all of them, you know, are happening. You've got neurological disorders happening. Well, lo and behold, you know, you've got your aluminium compounds. When they're brought into the body, and if they're in vaccinations, they're actually injected, which means they pass all the filtering processes. So in effect, your body will do its best to filter out all of these particles, particulates that are being sprayed. But if you're actually having a vaccination, you're taking it, it's going straight through the membrane. It bypasses the liver and the kidneys. It tends to actually stay in those slow replacing cellular tissues. You know, you've got your sunscreens where it's in, your cosmetics where it's in. It goes on and on and on. You know, they claim that they're safe. Lo and behold, well, let me just inject my aluminium pan into you and let's see how quickly you die. I've melted it down. You know, it's not true. It's not safe. And, you know, basically the other thing is that when your aluminium mixes with iron, which is another mineral that you have in your body, lo and behold, they become highly reactive compounds. It's not healthy. It really isn't healthy. Simply, Steve, the World Health Organization has known about the effects of aluminium on the soil and how it locks up nutrients since the 1950s. World Health Organization is just a farce. How they have the goal to say health, they've only got one idea of health, the World Health Organization. Believe me. And the United Nations. Yeah, well, they're only there to actually put their agendas forward over and over again. Let's see what else you're all saying. Sam's saying spray your taxes over you. That'd make a good cartoon. Well, this is the thing, you know, Sam. I do think, you know, we basically are funding, you know, I give my tax and, you know, I don't mind paying tax if it's going for the good of us collectively. But I don't see that actually happening, in all honesty. I don't see that healthcare means healthcare. It means, you know, make you as ill as possible and get you into a system care. You know, so that we can make more profits out of you, so that we've got you in our clutches for the rest of your life. You take that medication, you can't come off it now. Never. Ever. Ha 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 ha. It's almost like the hooded claw. It's a bit like Dastardly and Muttley. It really is. You know, once they've got you in their clutches, you know, you're looking for that poor dog to come and save you, which isn't going to be very useful, let's face it. How often did the dog come and save you? I was only interested in getting another medal, and quite frankly, that's all it's about. It's about what these people can gain. This is why compartmentalization works so well. You know? Interestingly enough, some of you were asking and saying earlier, well, what actually helps to bring these heavy metals out? Well, you've got things like, and I think it was Rich who was saying about coriander. Definitely coriander. Have it in your diet. It actually helps to remove the heavy metals. You've got things like zeolites will help to draw out the heavy metals. Your grains, some of your grains will help to draw out. So as you dislodge them, you need a way of drawing them out. Putting proper fats in the body enables the body to then have the right fats there, which helps to then dislodge these heavy metals. So there are things we can do. I do a lot of resonance work. I'm finding that very, very useful, I have to say. I'm playing with it significantly. And someone else is saying, I thought the world WHO was a crappy rock band. I'll let the rest of the chat box deal with you on that one. Okay. Right. You got things like silica. Silica will basically help to actually dislodge, particularly, aluminium is my understanding. Okay. So there are ways of actually drawing it out of the body. And I see some of my clients got high aluminium levels. High aluminium levels. What on earth is that doing? So let me see what else. Because, but Russell Blaylock talks about aluminium as well in the nanoparticles and how they enter the brain and spinal cord really, really quickly through the lungs and nostrils. And, and these are nanoparticles. I saw back in, was it 2004, 2007? I can't remember with the date now, in Scientific America. And they were talking about how, they were spraying food with nanoparticles so they could track it through the system, so they could license it to only specific people. We will ingest those nanoparticles. Do any of these scientists actually consider the wider picture of this? I really do have to question that. I really do. You've got people working on biometrics and then say, it's for the good of society. I organise conferences and things like great, actually. They're creating algorithms for so that they can read the environment. And they're saying, oh no, it's for cars, and the military. Don't get me wrong. The same companies normally are providing the military with stuff. People are, scientists are just ignorant of the wider picture. We have to ensure that they, get people to see wider. Gosh, I'm off on one today, aren't I? Oh dear. Anyway, the other thing that's in there is, you've got barium. I see barium coming in my screenings quite a lot as well, strontium. And someone else was talking about strontium earlier. And so was Alix about the infertility issues. Absolutely fascinating. But, you basically, barium can cause serious heart and digestive problems. It will, these things diminish your immune system. It interferes with the activation of your T cells. So basically will stop your body from having an immune response against the pathogenic microbes or whatever else they're spraying us or whatever else they've put into our environment. So if our immune system cannot fight it off, it enables it to lodge itself in and degrade our health bit by bit by bit. It is so important for us to have good quality food and be, feeling really positive about ourselves and stuff like this. If we are to suppress what they are doing, we're to knock back what they are doing. Oof, blimey. Oh man. Penelope Pitstop. Someone else is talking about, I'm on Penelope Pitstop. I never even thought about that. Stop the pigeon. I wonder if Nick can find Stop the Pigeon for the end of the show. You reckon? You there, Nick? Wouldn't that be cool? We can do Stop the Pigeon for the end of the year. Let's see what he says. He's going to write back to me in a minute. And Rich is saying people are fed by the food industry who pays no attention to health, and then they're treated by the health organisations that pay no attention to food. How right is he? It's all about profit. It's not about us guys at all. He reckons we can catch the pigeon for next week. No, I think he's a bit busy in the background there with masses of animals. Wet dogs is what I understood was going on in the background as well as people. It's not great weather here. Let's see. Let's see what else is going on in the chat box. What else are you all saying? Anything I should read out? Has nobody responded to someone else and him going on about the Who? Anyway, as we start 2013, people will be planning, we'll be planning and making promises about our New Year's resolutions. We'll be trying to put them in place. And, you see it all in the newspapers. They distract you. Oh, improve your diet. It's all about losing weight and be looking like a celebrity or whatever people are reading. And, and people tend to do New Year's resolutions on changing things specifically for themselves, and it tends to be around their health. I think, we need to think more broadly in regards to our New Year's resolutions and consider, people like farmers, policymakers and us as eaters, how we actually are going to create bigger resolutions for fixing the food system and the much wider system that's going on, So I'm not thinking small here. I want you to start thinking big New Year's resolutions about how we can influence that, because there must be a way of influencing that. You cannot tell me there's no ways of influencing it. So Simply Steve saying, "'Tis a forum for justifying profit, poisoning us for profit." I know, I hate to agree with you. I do think, I think you're right. But we need real changes and resolutions which have long-term impacts on our farmers' fields, on our agriculture, on our boardrooms. These people who are running these big companies who are actually having the influence on government so significantly, and on our plates. Our New Year's resolutions have to, be impactful on our plates. Not just the bloody resolution about how to lose a few pounds that you've gained in the last few years, because you don't resemble the latest skinny celeb in a magazine. Our food prices are going up due to them playing with the weather, betting on and gambling on our food as derivatives. How horrifying is that? And what amazed me is that, and I didn't realise, which I learnt off the Chemtrails Project UK site, was how they actually, they basically have weather. What was it? No, they have the weather on the stock market. How can that be right? In reality, where is that now? Where did I see that? I've got that information somewhere here. I was shocked to see that it's actually, it's traded on the stock market. Trading our weather on the stock market. It's only a matter of, they trade us, let's face it. If you imagine it at a small, at its fundamental level, they're trading us as people, as assets. That's what UKPC is about. So they gamble on our food. Our governments who are meant to be here for supporting, they're meant to be here for us. They support them with their legislation and their policies, and it's all for their personal gain. Our taxes, can I go on and on about our taxes today on my last show of the year? I just think my taxes pay for this government to actually then be influenced by these corporations, which means I have no influence at all. All I do is pay the wages of someone to listen to someone else who then does something that I don't want to happen. How right is that? It's just not right. I want us to create big New Year's resolutions that the world can't afford to break, that we can't afford to break. And what's really sad is that most New Year's resolutions, most people have forgotten them by actually the first 7 days, if not the first 24 hours. They've broken them because they've probably got too much chocolate in the house. They need to do New Year's resolutions at about March time. In all honesty, that fits quite nicely with spring and new planning, fits far better with the Chinese 5 elements, I'll be honest, when you're more likely to keep to your New Year's resolution than actually in January. So in many respects, I will forgive you if you don't keep to your New Year's resolution. But at the same time, if you create a big New Year's resolution, which is what I'm asking you to do, then actually I won't forgive you. I don't do forgiveness very well, mind you. I will be honest. Typically Aries. When we have so many people hungry, and then you got something stupid like 1 billion people going hungry, and then you've got over 1 billion people obese and overweight. What's all that about in this world? We have some major tools that are available to us technologically You know, they have these systems, they have these tools. Well, let's now use them for what we see and we want in this world. Because it's madness when we've got so many people hungry and then so many people overweight. And in fact, those overweight people are also hungry. You know, we've got people that are starving and people are fat. We've got people who are super rich and people who are poor. I don't mind if you have money, but I do mind walking past someone who's sleeping on the street because your bank has put them out on the street and taken their home away from them unnecessarily. I mind that. I mind you making people homeless and taking everything that they have away from them for you to sit in your bloody mansion. I don't mind you having a mansion if you're doing good stuff and you're helping the wider society. I really don't. But there's a lot of people with nothing out there. You know, this time of year, being homeless, it's not nice. And whilst I'm on that, I'm just going to give Adam Buttery a quick plug because he worked for Crisis this year. So Adam came on the show earlier this year and did a cracking show about Bowen, Reiki and about out-of-body experiences. And he's a therapist. He works over in the Farnham, Hampshire area and he works with Crisis over Christmas doing massage for them. And that's just cracking really. And, you know, we all need to be doing things like that. You know, and the thing that really upsets me, can we all be rich and abundant in this world? That is the thing. It doesn't need to be so misplaced. It really doesn't. You know, but we have to focus on creating it, not just fighting these people. Because it is so compartmentalised. They compartmentalise us. So we end up fighting. So we've got little projects fighting other areas of it when it's actually a really big strategy that they have going on. And therefore, it breaks down our energies into these small areas and these small arenas so they can pick us off. So they'll pick us off in one arena, they'll pick us off in the food arena, and then the supplement arena, Agenda 21, then you've got your chemtrails. Just pick us off. They compartmentalise us. You know what? We see it all collectively. It basically, we just need to bring ourselves together and go, you know what? I'm not working for you anymore. I'm not doing this with you anymore. I'm not playing that game anymore. Because this is what it's about. It's a game that they play with us. We have to focus on creating, not just fighting them. When our energy is taken up with fighting, we're not working with each other on what we want. You know, the focus needs to be on us, not them. And we have it on them too much. It needs to be on what we want to have happening, not on what we see happening. And then we can fight to stop it. You know, we need to collectively join these energies together, working for ourselves, not for them. I am so, you know, I bought out of this system as much as I could. And there's lots of people on here who do things like Shazise will tell you how to have free energy. Buy out of that system. Grow your own food. Buy out of that part of it. Bit by bit by bit. If we don't feed that fire will go out. It has to. We have to live for ourselves, not them. Supporting each other who have the same ethics and values. It's not a competition anymore on who's best, richest, slimmest, fittest, fastest. It's about us living together harmoniously. Joining our energies on what we actually want to see. You know, we want to actually use this so that we actually create a really positive energy so that we have the health, the vibrancy, the vitality, the longevity, the energy, the clarity of mind and the world that we actually know that we can have. Cool. Someone's trying to get hold of me on Skype. Who is it? People are sending me stuff. Lots of people sending me stuff now. Thank you very much. So what's being said in the chat box? So who's going to come up with a New Year's resolution that's bigger and hairier than they are? Come on, tell me about your New Year's resolutions that you're going to put in place for us. That's going to create this change with us. And Simply Steve saying, Debbie, I am working hard on indoor germination systems based on free energy devices. This is what it's about. Absolutely. Take it back. Fantastic. What are the rest of you doing? Come on, guys. Tell me what you're going to do. Tell me your New Year's resolutions. Send them to me. You know, we can start to create power and energy amongst ourselves. And part of it, for me, is about growing more food in every space we can find. This year I was inspired. I can't remember whose show I listened to it on, but about the ladies who did Incredible Edible. In fact, it was last year, not this year. And food production doesn't only have to happen in fields or factories. You know, apparently nearly 1 billion people worldwide produce food in cities. So let's start to reduce the power they hold over us with food and the starvation issue. And actually, you know, I had Martin Derwent on earlier this year talking about the New Dawn project, which was really fascinating. And his project was about bringing permaculture and empowering people in indigenous cultures, basically, who are effectively starving due to wars and displacement. And he showed them how they could actually create and harvest their own food using permaculture in those areas and the right seeds and things like this. Fascinating project. And he also runs it in the UK. That's the fantastic thing about it. You can buy those kits for the UK as well. What better than actually having food on your doorstep, and this is the way it's meant to be, not shipped across the world, not having it so Africa is producing masses of produce for Western societies and then going starving themselves because that's the way their government have got it set up, that's the way the food production people have got it set up. How farcical is that? Is that right? No, it isn't right. This is where our energies are misplaced often. You know, I have a small garden. I grow what I can. I grow my own herbs and things like this. I grow some medicinal herbs. I've been practicing seed bombing this year. I've been having so much fun with it. Seed bomb, guys, is great fun. You grow somebody. So you grow all these plants everywhere and you just go out and you forage them. Go and forage, wild forage. And then they spread themselves. And I've been growing medicinal herbs and all sorts of things in the local woodland and by the sides of fields and things. You know, I'm almost on a mission. So that it's not, because I haven't got a very big garden, but it does mean that when I go out, I can then go and actually pick my own food. Control your own food, grow your own micro gardens. You know, get stuff on balconies, get it in your kitchens, have some fun doing it. See how hard it is actually to grow your own food. And then become really grateful for what you've got. I'm totally grateful because of how difficult it is. You know, I'm able to do a little bit of foraging at the moment, fascinatingly enough, because it's still so wet, because it hasn't been that cold. How long have I got? Oh, not long. They'll be telling me soon to shut up. So who's saying, so Rich, who loves Tesco? Tesco's, I'm not going to say anything in case they sue me, but that should tell you everything. Actually, if anyone follows me on Twitter, and if you follow me on Twitter, it's at Change Passport. So it's Change Passport, so it's my business name, but the other way around. And I had the most bizarre experience. I was at the food checkout in Tesco's, and the guy started talking to me about quantum physics and about creating your own reality. And so I ended up talking about holographic universe to him about the Michael Talbot work. And at the end of the conversation, I actually asked him, why was he creating the reality that he was in? And that was fascinating. His supervisor was just watching us going, what is all this about? But this is a good 10-minute conversation. We have ways of influencing people bit by bit by bit. Hopefully he'll go and change his reality. And yeah, people do have, you know, Rich is saying about the I'm alright, Jack attitude. Until it happens to them, this is the thing. But you can't change people, we can only change ourselves. It's about us. You have to bring it back to us. And the people who are drawn to you are the ones that are resonating with you, that will listen, that will actually be influenced by you, and you will be influenced by them, and you'll grow together. Those people who aren't attracted to you, who basically say, I don't care, well, you know what? They're in a different arena to you at the moment. Maybe they'll care eventually. Use your energies towards yourself and about what you want. We can only influence people so far. Oh, right, guys. Nick's asking me, what would you like, what would I like next as music? So, you can have either the Foo Fighters or you can have the Fuzz Tones. You can choose, guys. It's my last show of the year. There you go. Isn't that sweet of me? And what have I got? I've got a few minutes left. So whoever says first, who wants the Fuzz Tones or the Foo Fighters? We have to create better access to food. You know, it has to be far easier to get hold of food, and good quality food. I'm not just saying food in general. Food's on every corner of our streets now, but that's not food, that's entertainment in my eyes. You know, I want good quality, highly nutritious, organic food that doesn't, you know, that basically isn't sprayed at the detriment of our health and planet. But it's actually for our health benefits, not for profits. And as Rich was saying, most food's actually created nowadays for a profit. It's not created for our actual health. You know, so let's start supporting companies and farmers who grow organic food as much as we can. You know, let's stop the subsidies. Oh, I'll tell you as well, my taxes go towards subsidising McDonald's and other crap foods like that. Junk, absolute junk. The chemicals that are in those foods are not food at all. It's just junk chemicals that are put together. Look at the pictures online. You know, one of their Big Macs didn't even degrade. If you eat enough of them, you won't degrade either. Be able to put a YouTube video out filming you once you've died. If you've lived off McDonald's for all your life, and probably 90 days later you'll still be looking the same. Can you imagine? Look, if none of you choose, I'm going to choose myself in a minute. I really am. You're going to either have the Foo Fighters or the Fuzz Tones. So let's get onto our MPs and ask them to stop subsidising. You know, Alex has got the right idea. You know, create directives and start telling these people what we actually want, but then let's take it back, you know, as much as we can. The less we buy that food, the less they'll actually be selling of it. Lo and behold, they'll start to shift their focus towards the things that are selling. We have more power than we think. We truly, truly do. You have 1 minute to decide what you want, guys. You can either have the Fuzz Tones or you can have Foo Fighters. Foos, there you go, guys. Right then. That's either Jim or Lorraine. I was so looking forward to listening to the Fuzz Tones. Anyway, so I've got 2 minutes left. Isn't that fabulous? So I want you to create some New Year's resolutions this year that you stick to. It's about sticking to them, not the 24 hours I'm going to give up chocolate business for the rest of your life, because let's face it, even I don't give up chocolate for that long. You know, the stuff that we can keep to. Seed bombing, growing our own. You know, working with only people who are ethically aligned to ourselves, who've got the same values as us, giving companies, our energies that have got the same values as us, so that we grow collectively. You know, demand healthier foods because it feeds you. It feeds your mind and your body, and it feeds this wider world. You know, don't eat food that your grandparents just wouldn't recognise. It's that simple, really. We deserve it. We deserve good food. We deserve what it gives us. It gives us clarity of mind. It gives us energy, vitality. It gives us enhanced lives. It gives us a life that we don't even recognise. If it's got a long list of ingredients, you don't have it in your cupboard on the label, chuck it out. This has been Deborah Walker. This is TNS. This has been 2012. We got through the apocalypse. Who would have thought it? Anyway, let's look forward to 2013. I want to know what your New Year's resolutions are. And this is going to be the Foo Fighters. And next up is Shaziz. He's going to rock the house as always. Hopefully he'll play me a track, which means I can dance around my living room and finish the year off well. Have a great one, guys. It's been great to speak to you.